Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org, and you'll find all my 6 podcasts. And scan the QR code or go to roycollin.com or another episode with Arnold, Sane in an Insane World. And what we're going to cover today is about the dangers of folic acid, tests for staying healthy, gas bills, Polish presidential elections, Andrew Tate, people only want one thing, Mosquito Factory, elections in Romania, listening with an open mind, PIZA Test, not pizza, PISA Test, AI and Dodge. So it'll be another interesting one. Welcome, Arnold.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I suppose let's start. People only want one thing. What is it? Because I think everybody wants a lot of things.
Yeah, well, if you put it like that, it's we're not going in that direction. but the main thing what I know in my coaching, in training, but in business, people have that everywhere is they only want one thing to get better podcasts, one thing to improve your health, one thing to become mentally and emotionally fit, one thing to improve the finances of your business. That is a question which young and old are asking me and you all the time, whereas it's a stupid question because there is not one thing. There is not one thing in life to make you healthy. There's not one thing in life to make you rich. There's not one thing that you can get a Ferrari. Not one thing to get a beautiful husband. It's everything which is worthwhile, everything which then takes a lot of time and effort and discipline. So by asking that question, you're showing to me your laziness. That's what you did. Because if you ask Cristiano Ronaldo, or you could even call it Trump or anyone else, well, how did Roy became one of the most successful podcasters in the world? It was not one thing. Yeah, it's at least 5 to 10, I would guess. So
Even more, Arnold. And it's interesting you say that. The amount of people, they'll either come on for like a coaching call or when I'm talking, and they're all asking me, they all assume it's one thing that I've done that I've got all my podcasts into the top of the charts. And they're all kind of going, what is it? What is it? They just assume there's something I'm doing, just one thing. And when I tell them, hey, you have to have a very interesting interview. You have to do marketing. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. And then you just see their face kind of going, they're just expecting a magic button or something that I share. And I think, as you say, in football and everything, a lot of people, like I've even heard people, they started wearing the same clothes of like Steve Jobs or Zuckerberg, just a great teacher, because they think, that's it. I don't have to think. I'll just wear the same clothes every day. And I just shake my head when I hear that. Like,
exactly. I have the same with brain fitness. I could say I'm working for this for 25 years now. And then people are like, what? Yeah. I would encourage people to no longer ask that question because it's not going to help you. And to work on, to have a holistic perspective, an integral perspective on their life and on their work, and not just one thing. Like, no, you got to work on all of these things. And if you start looking at it from that perspective, I guarantee you, your results will become better.
and I suppose following up from that, there's a lot of people then, they kind of aspire, look to somebody that influences them, and then they try to copy, replicate, do everything. And I as I mentioned a few times, I listened to Patrick Bet David, podcast because I just enjoy it, and it keeps me up to date with a lot of stuff that's going on in America. So he had Andrew Tate on again. I think it's his third time. And they're sitting around chatting as if this guy is brilliant, really loud-mouthed and kind of shouts instead of having a conversation. And he's got millions of listeners. So I know that Florida has stopped. They don't want him to come in, and he has some issues in Romania. I have seen videos, I think it was Milky Bar, I was trying to find it, where he was beating the crap out of a girl. And like when the guy worked it back, it seemed like she was about 15 when he started being with her. And there's a few videos going out where he's really like making women cry and everything. So this is one thing. He is abusing people. Then he done videos. CoffeeZilla, he's a brilliant crypto guy. CoffeeZilla destroyed him because like at one stage, the Tate brothers are like, especially Andrew, is like saying, "Oh, crypto is like not basically bashing crypto, never doing it." And then he started recommending a few years later, recommending all kinds. They all went. Poof. Then he created his own meme going Daddy, and he's obviously made millions from this. So this guy is abusive, a scammer, a liar, and you've got big channels putting him out as if he's a hero. And, for a lot of kids, they don't have a father figure and they're trying to recommend this guy and he's helping so many people. And he's even talking about, no, he wants to run as the Prime Minister of the UK. If your child is following this guy and looking up to him, please tell him stop. He is a scumbag and it's dangerous. And I'm disgusted with Patrick Bet-David because he's a very good father himself and everything. But he gives this guy a platform and he never attacks him on stuff with the questions with that information's out there. It's always kind of like, a chit chat and everybody just having a conversation, which in turn is giving him more followers and more people to think this guy is brilliant. So please be careful who you follow.
Well, that ties nicely into what I mentioned about just doing one thing, just doing the same as Mr. X, Mrs. X. And it just like, if I do it like that, I will become just as wealthy, just as well known as that person. I tell you, that's not the case. Unfortunately, you have to do the work. Each one of us have to do the work. Roy, Arnold, you, me, everybody has to do the work. Yeah? If there would have been a magic formula or a magic wand, I would wave and say, well, I'll do this and everybody in the world will be happy and healthy and whatever. I would do it and a lot of people would do it, but unfortunately that's not the case. Each and every one of us got to do the work, yeah? Whether it's not one thing, whether it's following Andrew Tate or anybody else, sorry guys, you still have to do the work.
Exactly. So, Mosquito Factory. I mean, I had seen Gates, I think it was in Florida, and you were looking at dark clouds. And I was like, what are they doing there? Because like they're genetically modifying these, God knows what they're actually, what you're getting jabbed into you. So I'm interested in
you already told my pitch. It is like it's basically a tweet where I saw that there is a mosquito factory which produces 30 million mosquitoes per week. I'm repeating, 30 million mosquitoes per week. And like you said, it's most likely that, among others, Bill Gates is using it to give us vaccines. Because, well, these are artificial mosquitoes. They're not real mosquitoes. But if you put some stuff in them and they hit you, they can put any kind of stuff inside of you. But you say, hey, God, 30 million per week. That's a lot of mosquitoes.
I was looking at, because then I think we touched on the farmed salmon. I'm saying stay away from it, get the wild if you can. And I was seeing one video where they basically go through a processing thing and they're small, they're that size, and they're jabbed, and it looked like about 8 different injections that they're giving them, vaccines, all different things. What is going into them? And it's going into us then. So when you look at that, you go, one, what reaction with all these different ones is happening? And two, you're eating that food. So be careful. Be very careful. Elections in Romania. I mean, I like we getting the update on what's going on in Romania, and it's handy because you're on the ground there.
Yeah, and it nicely connects with what is going to happen in Poland, where you are. The two things happening: the candidate Georgescu, which I mentioned before, he has registered finally as a presidential candidate, so that has been approved. Although there's still the election bureau has not approved yet. It's expected today or tomorrow whether they will approve it, because apparently you need all kinds of approval to run in the election. So that's not certain yet. But they also in Romania have said to some EU-backed NGOs and the authorities and the social media platforms to flag content as disinformation, and basically, everything which is not the EU or the government related, they will flag it as disinformation. So there are all kinds of campaigns starting. There's even suggestions, but even if that man, Cătălin Georgescu, if he would be running thing, it's very likely that they will charge criminal charges against him, and it's already building up. So, again, it's like, this is not because, Romania is interesting, of course, but it's not like this is happening everywhere. It's like that they try to influence people who they don't want. Yeah? And but the really interesting thing here is that the population here does not accept it. Yeah, there were again protests last Sunday when we had our last call. So it's people are seeing this, and people are like, they don't want this anymore. They don't want this interfering by the EU and the local governments to run things. So that's the current status in Romania.
Very good stuff. I mean, for those that probably know me, if they're seasoned listeners, they know I'm Irish, but I'm living in Poland for something like 18 years now. But I mentioned that the elections were coming up, the presidential elections, so that it's going to be in May the 18th, with a potential second round on June the 1st, if no candidate gets the majority. So there's 4 that are going for it. Rafał Trzaskowski, he's from the civil platform PO. His background as a mayor of Warsaw and a prominent figure in opposition to the Civic Platform Party led by Donald Tusk, and he's promises focusing on strengthening Poland's role in Europe and supporting pro-European policies, likely to align with Tusk's agenda of deregulating the economy, cutting welfare spending, and balancing the budget. So that's him. Then there's Sławomir Mentzin. He's the Confederation Party Libertarian leading candidate with a far-right confederation, but he's pledging to adopt Bitcoin as part of Poland's financial strategy. So that's one that's coming up a lot, like, because, Trump, I think it was the other day, like saying, we've got 200,000 Bitcoins or something like that. Like, so there's a lot of them that they're pushing the Bitcoin thing. And I had mentioned it, I don't know if I mentioned it on this show, but I mentioned it on my crypto, like that the white paper for Bitcoin was released on Halloween. So I don't trust the Bitcoin, to be honest. And even just looking at it, like, it fluctuates within the last month, like 25% or something there. It goes 80 grand, goes 110 or something there. It doesn't make sense. It's people losing a lot of money every time someone is making a fortune. Next person is a PIS-backed candidate, and they're saying likely Karol Nawrocki, background supported by the ruling party and Justice Party, PIS, which has been in power for years. continuation of conservative policies, including opposition to liberalizing abortion laws as seen under President Andrzej Duda, likely to focus on nationalistic and social conservative policies, as well maintaining strong ties with traditional allies. And then there's a girl, it's a woman, Agnieszka Bijat, Biejat, left party candidate, advocates for social justice, equality, and progressive ideas, promises to fight for people for a better tomorrow on her campaign. Like, so, it doesn't seem like there's anything, same. Usually, when you've got the two main parties, you don't get anything different, and the way that they've got the budgets and everything. So I can't see anything being changed there. I'm assuming it'll be one of the two main parties that kind of hover with ruling power in this country.
Yeah, but very important still, because Poland has one, if not the biggest army in Europe. So,
yeah, and I saw that Ursula what's her name? Van der Leyen, yeah, promising 800 billion to the Ukraine, like, and then we're listening on one side where Trump is trying to get peace and stuff like that, and it's like where all the political parties in Europe are meeting, and the Canadian guy, and yeah, it's let's put them on the front line if they're pushing for a war. We see how fast it would end. Instead of they don't care the canning fodder, they're just putting people out there. So
absolutely.
Listening with an open mind.
Well, I think it has always been important, but I think given what's happening at many different levels in our society, is that we should really learn to listen what other people are saying. Why is it? Of course, Arnold, we're doing that. Why are you mentioning that? Well, what I noticed is that a lot of people, they are not listening to every word you're saying because they are in their minds already creating their response or their own thoughts about what's happening, or what's happening a lot in interviews, podcasts, business meetings, negotiations, is that people already is like, oh, you're mentioning, they're preparing the next question. Yeah, in their head, they're preparing the next question. So they don't even, well, they look like they listen, but they don't listen because they're like, okay, when you finish talking, this will be my question. Huh? But in that way, I think there's no respect for the other person because you're not really listening. You pretend you're listening. Huh? And if you want to learn, you really got to be open from the beginning to the end. And not already prepare your next question or start like, well, I don't think this is true. It should be different. No, you should have respect for the other person. And the respect is let them give their point of view. And it doesn't matter whether it's about yesterday's football game or whether it's like if tomatoes are healthy or you're in a price discussion between two businesses. Listen with an open mind. And I think a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of things which really take long, well, because we're not really listening to each other.
This is a good lead into my next point, because I like Patrick Bet-David. He's a fantastic interview. He brings on brilliant people, except for the one that I mentioned earlier. But what he does a lot, he's got a big team around him, but he's got it looks like an iPad, and he's checking stuff and all this. And he had some health guy, I forget the name of the guy, but very good, just on this week as well. And he mentioned about folic acid, and he didn't talk much about it, so it obviously went over his head. But I was like, what's that about? Because I remember with my first child in Ireland, yeah, folic acid you get when the mother is pregnant. Oh, it's very good for the baby and everything. And the same here in Poland, so most women are told take folic acid when you get pregnant, and it's needed. I didn't know. I thought it was like any vitamin or whatever, because it's in, I think, spinach and it's in a few different things, but you get it in tablet form. I thought it was kind of made the same way as, when you get vitamin D and all the other good vitamins. And it's not, it's synthetic. And it can cause nausea, loss of appetite, bloating or gas, stomach pains, confusion, trouble concentrating, sleep problems, mood changes such as depression or excitement. And every single thing that I've learned as I'm going through this journey of life, because I've questioned everything. And I think, okay, I assume this is good for us because, like say the poison dart and things like that. And when I researched it, it's like they know it's not. And I actually, unfortunately, think it's the same with folic acid. I think that it isn't good. And anything is synthetic. So what was happening before they actually start manufacturing that? Was all the babies dying and everything? So I would just say, go away and do your own research, not just on this, but on a lot of things. Because for me, I was like, I never knew that was synthetic. And I even checked with my mum. I was like, did you know that? And she was like, no. So it's like, did you know that? I mean, maybe you wouldn't have heard it. I don't know. Did you hear about folic acid that the doctors would recommend? No. Yeah. But usually when you only find this out when, when you're, when your missus is expecting, and then they tell you, oh, it's very good and it's healthy and all that. And we just assume they have our best interest at heart. And I don't think so. So, I mean, it's impossible for me to confirm, but that's synthetic. I don't think it should be in our bodies.
No, there's a reason why we are biological and not technical or synthetical. Huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, do you eat pizza, but PIZA Test, what's that about?
PISA, they're a global test. Many countries are participating in that, and it's a test of 15 and 16-year-olds. Yeah? And they test your reading, your mathematics, and your science capabilities. So in that way, you can compare a Chinese student with a US student, with an Irish student, with a Dutch student, because otherwise it's very difficult to compare. But these PISA tests, which have been, I don't know how long, but it's going on for years and years and years, that makes an apple-to-apple comparison possible. Yeah? So what are their capabilities? And currently, let me ask you, Roy, which country do you think ranks the best?
I think maybe Scandinavian countries, maybe Finland or something like that.
I'm sorry, Roy, you're not close. Way further out. Number one is China. Yeah, so the Chinese students, they rank in all of these tests. So the reading, the mathematics, and the science is the number one. I saw somewhere, don't hold me to detail, but it was pretty bad. The US was 16th. I've seen, but that was from last year, that reading in Dutch student was abysmal, which is in a lot of countries, because they can read in the sense that they know what a letter is and how it sounds or whatever. So, but if you give them even a text of like 5 sentences and then ask them, what have you just read? They have no clue. So the understanding of what they read, and this was in the Netherlands, they don't know. Yeah, so, but this says a lot about our future, because when you're 15, 16, well, in the next few years you will go to university or whatever. But if you don't know the basics, well, that creates problems. And the country who has the leading students will be the leader in science and in business and everything else. So that is the PISA test.
I mean, the education system, I mean, I've done a few shows with that, like that as Dean. They've destroyed that, and like they even took the phonetics out as well. So then it's going to look and learn and remember. So everything then was about remembering. So, and I mean, I even ask, I look at, say, my son, I'm always kind of paying attention and asking him, like, ask the question, when will I ever use this? And one, he mentioned it wasn't him, it was the girl had asked. And it was something about some maths thing that was just, he was like saying, this doesn't make sense. The girl asked anyway, when will I need this? When you be a maths teacher, you would need it. So basically, whatever is doing, the only reason you need it is to be a maths teacher to teach it onto someone else, but you never use it in practical. And I mean, if I look back in a load of the things we had to do, it was just all about wasting time. And the only thing I don't like Tusk, I think he's part of all the CEO, but the one thing he did do, so I'll give credit where due, is he stopped homework, because I think that was something in my era that you were doing 2 or 3 hours of stupid homework after being in school for, I don't know, 8 hours. And it was stopping you from actually going out and playing or connecting with your family. And if anything, creating tension in the household because, if you weren't good at something, your parents who were working hard or cleaning or whatever, then had to set aside time to sit down and get you to try to figure out how to do the maths or whatever it was. And that's one good thing that's happening in Poland. They stopped. And I don't know about the other. Maybe the listeners can write in and tell me what's it like in your country. Have they done that in other countries as well? But I think I'm totally for that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. So the gas bills. It's every 2 months you get your gas bills here. And it was about last year, I remember it was like 1,500 zlotys. So that's nearly €400. And I was thinking, there's something wrong here. How's it that? And then I was checking it and it goes, yeah, mine's the same. So before it would have been less than half that, or it wouldn't put a dent. It was okay. And I got one this week, €800. And it's like, how many people can afford to be paying for bills like that? And I know in the UK and other countries, they're wearing 5 coats in the house and they're choosing between food or staying warm. And it's all a game. It's like, oh, it's because of Russia, it's because of this, it's because that. Every time there's a war in any direction, oil prices go through. But what they're doing is, at times, they've done it in Ireland, it's gone through the roof in Ireland, so then they give a little grant. Oh, we give you €200 off your bill, rather than reducing it. And if you own your house and you can't afford this, these scumbags, governments, who control all this, the whole lot is orchestrated. You'll have a debt, which will be plus interest, plus penalties, plus a bailiff or a sheriff or whoever comes after it. And they'll just take your house. And then the likes of Black Rocks then will buy it on pennies on the dollar. So most people cannot afford these gas bills. And I know electricity is the same. And it's like everyone's just kind of fighting their own battle and thinking this is just how it is. It's not. The gas is coming from the ground. How has that quadrupled? Oh, we have to get it from a different source. Like even in Ireland, we do oil and gas, and I think a Shell or some Norway or something. Ireland got nothing of it. So everything is all orchestrated so that we're slaves for life, and it is like not to be tolerating it. And I'm going to cover it later on. I know people that have actually got out of that system is too in depth now for today, but I mean, I don't know what it's like in Romania, but here it's just, I think 4x or more the price of gas in a short period.
Well, in a sense, isn't it crazy that a product, whether it's gas or oil, which is in the ground, just like, let's say, the sea, who owns the sea, who owns the ground? Yeah? If you buy a house, whatever, you don't own the ground below your house. Yeah? So it's like, why do people, well, energy companies, government pretend that they are the owner? They're not the owner. Huh? We, the people, all of us who live on this world are the owner of what's in the sea, what is in the soil, in the ground. So pretending that it's theirs, it's not correct. It's from all of us. Yeah? So I can totally relate. Well, not in Romania. The prices here are very, very reasonable. But also still, well, they're increasing, but they're reasonable. But I can, when I lived in the Netherlands, I lived in the house of my mother, where I was the caretaker of my mother. The house was in 1957, so it was not isolated and everything. I was literally sitting with 3 sweaters and a cap on my head because well, I had to put it at 15, 16 degrees Celsius inside, because if it would be more, I could not pay the bill. So I experienced that for years. Yeah, so it's yeah, it's and that's the case for many people. Huh?
Like I actually saw, because I was looking at the different countries, and even with a lot of the AIs, I was trying to get a chart and everything. They're hiding all the information. I mean, AI should be able to give me that. What's the price for the last 10 years and what's the different countries and everything? And like I tried a lot of them. It was very hard to get the information. It was like, oh, we don't really know. And we think it went up 50% and all this kind of stuff. And that was with a few. I was trying a few different ones. But like Ukraine and Russia, way cheaper, Turkey way cheaper, and Holland one of the highest. I think Switzerland as well. And like, why? I mean, if we look at say our friends in Pakistan or something like that, like it could be $50 for what I'm paying 800. Like, what's the difference? You know, it's not as if it's going through the pipes. All the stuff is laid and everything, and it's just coming through. So if you're able to do it in Ukraine for 50% less or whatever, there's a big difference between Holland. Like one of them is like 2.0159 here in per the kilowatt thing. I forget what way it's actually rate, but if it's a gas, it should be the same everywhere, shouldn't it? You know, it's different when you're transporting stuff, but this is pipework that's already laid, and it's not as if they have to bring it to your house and you have a can, you've the tanker outside your house and they'd fill it up. It's not. All the pipework is laid.
Well, yeah, you trigger me. It's like, why is the internet, yeah, whether it's the data or your phone, here in Romania, what is it, 5 times cheaper than in the Netherlands? It's exactly the same argument. It's like the connections are there, the cables are there, everything is totally the same. Yeah. So it's just profiteering, and it's an infrastructure which is already being paid by all of us. Yeah? So there should be no difference.
So, your pest that we always talk about, AI. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, well, what they've been saying is that one of the main breakthroughs this year for the AI is something which they call agents. And an agent is not, well, I don't know about other languages, but in Dutch, an agent is a cop. But it's like is an interesting comparison. But an AI agent is literally, well, what is it? An entity, a technology, a species, like I discussed earlier in the show, who does a certain task. So an agent can do a specific task, and OpenAI is planning to introduce 3 different agents. One is a business professional. If you want that, it costs you $2,000 per month. So, and that agent can do certain business activities for you. An advanced software developing agent costs you $10,000 per month. And a PhD level researcher costs you $20,000 per month. These are literally entities which do the same or even better work than human beings. Yeah? Business professionals are cheaper than software developers and then researchers. Well, that makes sense. So, but these agents are going to replace your and my work, because these agents work day and night. They work in the weekend. They work everywhere. then you might say, it won't go so fast. It will be slowly, and they say it will be doing. But there's an investor called SoftBank. It's well, I think it's based in Japan, but it's a global, one of the largest investors in the world, and they have already committed to buy these agents for the amount of $3 billion. So they already said, for this amount, we're gonna buy all these type of agents from me, and we're gonna deploy these agents. Read, that looks all nice and interesting. You're like, oh, that's cool. But that means there gonna be hundreds of thousands of people losing their job. So that is the AI news of this world. If you look at AI agents, so those are not general purposing, but they do a specific task, and they take over that task from you and me.
And I just, like say research and everything, because so many times I see flaws in the AI that's out there, and it's down to programmers as well. And I know it can go in and search itself. If it was able to go to every single book and everything, you wouldn't get the programmer's answer that they want you to get. And I wonder, will that be the same? And I mean, even if we look at the scammers, because the scammers all the time, like there's so many scammers, people are losing their life savings from all these different scammers. The reality is, if they wanted to, they could just set up the AI to go in and hit them, block them, know straight away when someone's been scammed, and they don't. So unfortunately, all the people that have the money to put behind the AI, they ain't the good boys. And that's my fear. So, I mean, I'm always into you have your AI thing, I have my health thing. So with a load of any illness, diseases and everything, I mean, a lot of people, they'll go into the doctor, they'll have the rash on the hand and they'll get the cream and it might solve it, but then they get some other thing, or they take the tablet and then they get something else 5 years later because there's a knock-on effect. And what I would actually recommend, for no matter what you have, to do these different things: test for mold, like you can do a skin prick test, and then there's blood tests as well. Test for parasites. I've watched a load of different things on it, and I'm not going to mention what I can cure, but one of the main ones that most people have, because if I say it, I'll get censored or the video will get taken down. So I'm just saying, if there's anything wrong with it, just do these things first before you start popping a pill that they'll try to get you on for life. Do a heavy metal cleanse, test for viruses, and for microtoxins. And a lot of them is like a urine test, blood test. You can resolve a load of illnesses based on doing that. So I recommend, if there's something wrong with you, do that first. And then if you have to go to, whether it's a doctor or an alternative. But I think there's a 90% chance that you'll resolve what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is what I keep on saying in about brain gym fitness, is that a lot of the stuff is happening inside of your body, in your environment. A lot of the stuff is not your fault. It's not that you did something wrong. It just, they put something out in the atmosphere. They put something in your food. There's something in your water. I shared this morning with Roy that I every morning I go for a walk an hour. Today I went out and my eyes started tearing all the time. It didn't stop. And I'm not sad. I didn't.
I didn't tell you a sad story or anything like that.
I didn't lose the love of my life. It was really tearing. And I shared a video with you about the really strange clouds here. There's definitely something in the clouds. So please don't think there's something wrong with you. It's like, oh, and I must go to the doctor and I put some, what do you call it, drops in my eye. And it's like, or maybe well, I don't use shampoo, but it's like maybe some shampoo get in my, well, it won't get tearing for an hour, yeah, when I'm outside. So it's please understand, listeners, that a lot of this stuff is happening to us. Huh? And it's from the outside and it's orchestrated. Um, but still, it's important to understand. I know it's like, otherwise, if I didn't know that this is because of the geoengineering and the chemtrails that was hitting my eyes, if I didn't know that, I might be thinking like, oh, I should see a doctor because I'm tearing all the time. There's something wrong with my eyes. So it's not your fault. There's something outside of you. But still, you need to deal with it. Now I'm inside, whatever, and it stopped.
And I mean, it's kind of what we've touched on, say the folic acid, the salmon, the farm salmon, like, because you're eating things like that. The water, they're spraying every day here. I can see it. So, as much as I'm trying to stay away from this, I know that the chickens are in that land that are eating and getting the farmer's eggs and the potatoes and all that stuff. So, but what I try to do is do as healthy as I can, have the water going through filters and stuff like that. But what I would say is a lot of people are kind of going, I can't do anything about it. If you're working in an industry and you know they're doing something wrong, even if I understand you're trying to protect your income and you might have a mortgage or you might have a family and you don't want to, even if you actually get the information out there, send it to us. Let us know what's going on. With the proof of what's going on, we can get it out there to the masses, because the only way it's going to stop is when people have proof that this is going on. Because you can't just say, this is the way it is. There's nothing we can do. We can do it. Everybody stands up and it stops immediately, but they're not standing up. So what I say is, you're responsible. Everything you see and you know is wrong, don't just say, that's just the way it is. You have to do something about it. And each person that stands up and doesn't tolerate it is when it stops. Rant over, Arnold.
Absolutely. Together we can do that.
Yeah, I did. Oh, there was one left. Doge, which I had seen somebody writing about it. Backwards is egod, which is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, I won't go there this time, but it's really thing. But the trade war in the US, where Trump is saying that if you want to import stuff into the US, export stuff to the US, it's become more expensive. Yeah, and that's the trade war, and the Doge thing is about where AI replaces government. Basically, that's what it is. And but it caused a lot of layoffs, and that's something which I touched upon today and in earlier shows, because I think that is crucial. Because in the US, they announced that for a month, in the last month, there were 172,000 layoffs in the last month. That's a 245% increase from a month earlier. Folks, 172,000 people lose their jobs. Assume they got a partner, they got kids, so that's 400,000 or 500,000 people who are impacted by that in just 1 month. So all the people are cheering like, oh, it's great. We fire all these government people. It's not only government people, it's everybody else as well. Yeah. Look at those agents. There was not government thing. Yeah. There were PhD scientists. There were business professionals. There were software developers. This will impact you and me, and it is already impacting, given those numbers of layoffs. So, and that impacts families. That impacts your neighbors, your friends. So it's not like, oh, no, I don't like government people anyway. Yeah, but you might be a software developer. By the way, I live in a city where I guess the couple of 100,000 software developers. If they lose their job, this whole city is going to fall apart. So In the US, it's already happening because there was a number which was approximately 70% of people in the US. They cannot make it based on their income until the end of the month. So they got to use their credit card or debt. So otherwise, they cannot, well, Roy already mentioned, well, they cannot pay their mortgage or their energy bill or just food for their kids. There are a lot of kids who were sent to school without the breakfast. So I would limit people who say, oh, AI is great and we get rid of bureaucracy and everything else. Yeah, that is good in a certain instant, but we should take care of the people who lose their jobs. Because it means children, it means women, it means men not being able to pay the bills. So that is awful. That is really awful. And something which I think shouldn't be necessary in this world. I think we should use, if we use AI, we should use AI that everybody has food, water, shelter, energy, basically for free. We can do that. It's not impossible. It's totally free. So then I think we will have less wars and misunderstandings and aggression and everything else. If we all got the basics and basically the lowest layer of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, if we get food, water, shelter, energy, that can be done for free, then we all have a nice life. Yeah, but now it's just, well, bad luck, you're a software developer. Yeah, you chose it and it was the future. Yeah, but now it's AI who's going to do the coding. Yeah, bad luck, guy. Huh? No more job. Yeah, what should they do? Well, that's your problem. No, it's our problem. We should care about these other people. It's not like it's not my problem. Well, it's not your problem today, but it might be tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So we should help each other and stick to each other. And all these families who, we mentioned it a couple of times, like in the UK, the elderly were sitting inside of their home with three coats on because they cannot afford the energy bill. Are we calling ourselves a progressive society? It's a backward society. So
Yeah, they can't put any money towards that. But when it comes to armaments and all military,
800 billion in the EU only. So 800 billion. I think for 800 billion for the next 20 years, every human being in the world can have free food, water, shelter, energy.
there was one company in Ireland, and when they were letting people go, there was a big layoff, but they employed people to actually help them find work and get them to transition. And I think even if it's in government, I've dealt with the city here and the officials. Do I like them? No, most of them are horrible. But at the same time, would I like that they be just fired and then they're left on their own? No, we have to show compassion. And I think the way to do it is go in, get their skill set and help them get a transition into another job. And that way then you're not going to have the experience that's going to happen. I mean, that's a massive amount of people that you've just mentioned. So
yeah, but it's like I'm just doing in my head. I'm not listening open-minded, by the way. I'm doing the calculation.
it was me talking away and he didn't even listen.
It's like we get 8 billion people in the world, and we give only in the EU 800 billion to basically conduct a war. But that is 100 billion per person. Think about it. That's 100 billion per person. For 100 billion, you and I and everyone in the middle can have a fantastic life the rest of your life. Am I right, or is this the wrong way of calculating?
It's like if it would be 100 each in there, because if you've 8 billion and 800, so it's just like 8 people and £800, same thing. So it'd be like 100 each. So it's not much. It'd be good. It'd keep some people for a month. Okay, but yeah.
No, but this will take care of you for a lifetime.
Well, if I got the 800 million, yeah, that would.
Oh, 800, yeah, the 100 billion, 100 billion, yeah.
I'm going to cover this next week. But I think we're told there's 8 billion people, or it was 7 or whatever. I think that's another lie. And I'm going to explain why I think that next week.
That's interesting cliffhanger.
Exactly. So, Arnold, I think we've covered it all. So, as always, thank you very much. They'll find you on braingym.fitness, and you'll find me on awakeningpodcast.org, or scan the QR code. You'll find all my podcasts, everything I'm doing, or go to rycon.com. Please give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and you subscribe. Hit the alarm bell, because it kind of helps and it gets more people to actually see it with the way the algorithms work, and comment. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. As I mentioned before, as long as you're not abusing me, which I get a lot of that as well, but I just kind of laugh and delete it if it's really offensive. But even if you don't agree, I'm okay to that. I'm open to that. And if you've got sources, we'll be looking at that, because I know that even Arnold comes in and looks at the different stuff as well. So we love your comments. So until next week, take care.